Imagine discovering that your fate was decided in just a few seconds, and that everyone around you believes you were born to fail. After awakening, a talent considered ridiculously low, and Bai becomes the laughingstock of the school. Even the people closest to him stop believing in him. But what no one imagines is that the moment he accepts that fate, a legendary system awakens, granting him a power capable of turning the most ordinary skill into something absolutely devastating. And what happens next completely changes the course of this story. So make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and get ready, because this is only the first part of the rise of one of the most overpowered mages. In Shangjiang, the students of number 1 high school gather for the talent assessment. An instructor calls them one by one until it is finally in Bai's turn. And Bai walks up to the stone pillar and places his hand on it to reveal his talent. The pillar reacts and displays the result, Mage, talent level 3-1. The instructor announces in Bai's result out loud for the entire class to hear. The news immediately sparks laughter among the students. One of them mocks that the class monitor's talent is barely enough to advance into a class, while another complains that someone so weak doesn't deserve to stand beside his goddess. A girl tells them to be quiet, reminding everyone that Bai's girlfriend awakened with a talent above 9. Liu Ruyan, and Bai's girlfriend, approaches to comfort him. She reveals that her own talent is Ice Mage, talent level 9. Sixen promises to protect him from now on, and Bai simply replies that he's fine and that she doesn't need to worry about him. His response catches Liu Ruyan completely off guard. The scene shifts to a city overrun by monsters. Watching the chaos around him, and Bai reflects with relief that he wasn't doomed to live as an ordinary person in this life. He reveals that 18 years earlier he had accidentally crossed over into this world, one invaded by beasts and demons from other dimensions. 90% of humanity has already perished, and the survivors now live inside isolated city-states. To resist the invasion, the world itself granted every human the ability to awaken a class, divided into 6 categories: warrior, mage, priest, archer, beast tamer, and support. On a 10-point talent scale, reaching 3 points is enough to qualify for a class, though only at the most basic level. 6 points are considered true talent, capable of reaching the 3rd advancement and becoming the backbone of humanity. 9 points guarantee that 3rd advancement, while anything above 9 marks someone as an absolute prodigy with the potential to reach the legendary divine rank. Back in the present, during magic practice at the training range, and Bai laments that his talent only allows him to become the most ordinary mage imaginable, nowhere close to a world-destroying powerhouse. He isn't even strong enough to overpower the weak. His classmates call out to him, pulling him out of his thoughts. Liu Ruyan suggests that he should choose the support class instead, since he could handle her logistics in the future. And Bai remains silent. He then reveals his real decision: he will become a mage. Liu Ruyan is stunned. The students around them burst into laughter again as they flip through the class handbook, mocking Bai's choice. While walking with his staff, Bai wonders if he should go back and buy a new one to test out. Behind him, his classmates laugh, including Liu Ruyan. She coldly tells him that allowing him to become a support was already his chance to stay by her side, and if he doesn't appreciate it, he shouldn't blame her for becoming distant. Inside the class advancement hall, Professor Wang asks Bai one last time whether he has truly thought this through and if he really wants to become a mage. The professor reminds him that he's an orphan with no one to plan his future and that he has no idea how many resources a mage requires. According to him, no faction would ever invest in a mage with only 3-1 talent, and Bai admits he knows his talent is practically worthless but says he still has one last hope. He firmly declares to Professor Wang that his decision has been made. He will become a mage. The professor sighs and gives in, telling Bai to step into the magic circle to receive the class advancement ritual, grumbling to himself that this is just another delusional young man. Bai steps into the center of the circle as magical energy completely envelops him. Professor Wang's eyes widen in surprise. The system confirms class advancement successful, class obtained, apprentice mage. Initial skill learned, elemental fireball. Seeing the result, Professor Wang sighs again, saying it was exactly what he expected. The most basic magic apprentice possible, not even worthy of being called a true mage. But Bai's face lights up with excitement as a burst of energy erupts around him, shattering the invisible chains that seem to bind him. A new system message appears: activation conditions fulfilled. The skill affix system has successfully bonded with the host. From now on, every time Bai levels up, he may draw 1 golden affix and attach it to any skill, granting additional effects. 1 draw is now available. He decides to draw immediately. The result appears: draw successful. Legendary golden affix obtained, explosion. Bai explains that in this world, affixes normally belong only to equipment, but the system he awakened can apply them directly to his skills. The world's rarity rankings are common white, excellent green, rare blue, epic purple, immortal orange, and legendary gold. Excited, Bai can't believe his very first affix is already the rarest legendary gold. The affix's effect is revealed. Explosion creates an area of effect blast that increases damage by 10 to 100 times, gradually decreasing from the center outward. Bai decides to fuse the affix into his fireball since it's currently his only offensive skill. Excited, he clenches his fist, eager to test what a 100-fold damage increase can really do. The scene changes to the mountain behind the school, and Bai explains that after returning to campus he asked around and learned there was a beginner training ground there. Along the way, he also managed to obtain a basic set of starter equipment. He runs toward the training area. His classmates spot him from a distance and are surprised that Enbai actually became a mage. One of them doubts he had the courage to do it, while another jokes that he'll probably end up clinging to Liu Ruyan's skirt. She simply rolls her eyes in annoyance. As he runs, Enbai recalls hearing that all the monsters in the mountain training area are captured by the school's teachers and rarely exceed level 5, making them perfect for testing his new fireball. Distracted, he suddenly trips over a staff that had been deliberately placed in his path. Standing before him is Liu Ruyan, now dressed as an ice mage, surprised to find Enbai at her feet. She offers to team up with him immediately, explaining that she's already a level 3 ice mage and could easily carry him while they split the experience evenly. Enbai refuses without hesitation. She then asks why he was running toward her in the first place. Enbai calmly replies that she was simply blocking the entrance. Furious, Liu Ruyan thinks to herself that Enbai embarrassed her in front of everyone, making it much harder to maintain their image as the school's perfect couple. Before Enbai enters, Professor Wang warns him that even though the monsters inside are low level, he should still be careful so he doesn't become the first student in the school's history to die there. Enbai thanks him for his concern and walks through the portal. Left alone, Professor Wang sighs, complaining that the boy never listens to advice. Even without telling him about the training ground, he still found his way there. Enbai passes through the magic portal and enters the training area. Almost immediately, he encounters a level 1 mutant rabbit, 80 HP, 5 attack, and 3 defense. He explains that these creatures originally came from Earth but mutated after being contaminated by energy from the other world, completely changing their nature. Staying cautious, Enbai decides to strike first and casts Elemental Fireball. The fireball flies forward, but the rabbit effortlessly dodges. His fireball is simply too slow. The mutant rabbit bares its sharp fangs and growls at Enbai, startling him with its unexpectedly aggressive behavior. But before the creature can react again, the fireball connects. A massive explosion engulfs everything nearby in a blinding flash. Enbai estimates that the blast radius reached nearly 10 meters. Even if the fireball itself is slow, the explosion still makes it capable of catching enemies off guard. The system confirms mutant rabbit eliminated. Current experience 1%. Satisfied that he's gotten used to the skill, he decides to begin hunting in large numbers to level up as quickly as possible. He ventures deeper into the forest in search of more prey. A mutant boar suddenly charges at him with a furious roar, followed by an entire pack of the same species. Enbai remains calm, thinking it couldn't have turned out better. Mutant creatures possess low intelligence and are easy to lure into traps. He unleashes a barrage of fireballs at the approaching herd. The mutant boars continue charging straight into the flames. The explosions erupt all at once, consuming the entire herd in a massive wave of fire. The system confirms 16 mutant creatures eliminated. Current experience 29%. More explosions continue echoing throughout the forest near a waterfall. The system announces, Enbai has reached level 2, Basic Class Passive activated, increasing all attributes by 1 point. Mage Class Passive activated, increasing Spirit by 3 points. Enbai's status screen appears. Level 2. Class Apprentice Mage. Physique 5. Agility 4. Spirit 11. Class Skill Elemental Fireball Explosion Affix. Available Skill Affix Draw 1. Excited, he tells the system to draw again. The result appears, draw successful. Legendary Golden Affix obtained again, explosion. Surprised, Enbai wonders why he received the exact same affix. The system then reveals another feature. When a duplicate affix is obtained, it automatically grants a bonus draw. Delighted by the discovery, Enbai realizes that duplicate affixes essentially provide a free extra pull. The bonus draw begins. Besides explosion, he obtains another legendary golden affix, tenfold multiplier. With glowing hands, Enbai fuses the new affixes into his skill. He wonders whether it's possible to apply explosion again even though fireball already possesses it. The system confirms that affixes of the same type can stack and strengthen one another. Thrilled by the answer, Enbai immediately orders the system to fuse the second explosion into his fireball. Hidden within the shadows of the vegetation, a pair of glowing eyes silently watches him. His skill is updated. Elemental Fireball now has a 1% chance to inflict burn, dealing damage equal to 10% of his spirit. With the stacked explosion affixes, the explosion damage multiplier increases from 30x to 300x, gradually decreasing from the center of the blast to its outer edge. Later that evening, Enbai sits beside a campfire roasting meat. As he eats, he realizes that consuming mutant beast meat also grants a small amount of experience while slightly improving his attributes. He reflects that he has already killed almost every mutant creature on that mountain, yet he has only managed to reach level 4. He then remembers when he was ambushed by a bear, which ended up disrupting the fusion of his affixes. At the moment of the attack, he desperately shouted for the system to apply the tenfold multiplier affix. The result appears on his status screen. Level 4, 25 Constitution, 24 Speed, and 37 Spirit, with Fireball already at level 2, no cooldown and no casting time. Enbai realizes to his surprise that the tenfold multiplier he rolled ended up applying to his passive ability, multiplying his main attributes by 10, opening his mind to new ways of using affixes. He concludes that the new affixes obtained after leveling up twice, no cooldown and no casting time, are perfect for compensating for Fireball's slowness. Determined, he declares that if he wants to reach level 5, he will have to look somewhere else. Meanwhile, at the entrance to the training area, the head instructor Li Feng comments to Professor Wang that the speed at which the wild monsters are being eliminated this year is far greater than in previous years. Wang suggests that perhaps the top students have joined forces to hunt the mutant beasts. Li Feng disagrees, saying he knows the strength of those few students well, and that such a thing would be impossible unless they had some hidden resource. Wang proposes that once everyone comes out, they can simply check each student's level to find out the truth. At that moment, a cry for help interrupts their conversation. A blue-haired student comes running in panic, being chased by something. Wang grabs him and asks what happened, assuring him that he is safe now. Still out of breath, the student says he does not really know. He was hunting mutant beasts on the outskirts when Wang urges him to finish the story quickly. The student reveals that an enormous horde of mutant creatures suddenly charged through the outskirts, and that he only escaped because he managed to run fast enough. Alarmed, Li Feng orders Wang to immediately expand the teleportation portal with him to provide cover for the students. At the top of the mountain, completely unaware of all this, Bai finds the silence around him strange, unable to spot a single person nearby. In the distance, 3 students are running in a hurry. The blue-haired boy warns that the portal has been expanded and that they need to leave immediately, while the girl beside him says the teachers must be waiting outside to provide support, cursing as she wonders why that horde of mutant creatures suddenly went mad. The horde advances. Mutant deer and wolves with glowing red eyes race through the forest. Standing calmly atop a cliff, Bai watches the approaching horde without moving. He finally understands why he could no longer find mutant creatures on the mountain behind the school. They had all fled to the outskirts. He estimates that this group alone will be enough to bring him to level 5. Meanwhile, at the entrance, students and teachers anxiously wait around the teleportation portal. Bai finally steps through the portal, emerging safely on the other side. Professor Wang greets him with relief, asking how he managed to escape that entire horde. Bai simply replies that by the time he left, the horde had already disappeared. Wang concludes that they probably dispersed on their own and tells him to get some rest, reminding him that only 10 days remain until the great exam that will determine everyone's future, and that he should use the time to level up. Alone, Bai pulls his hood over his face, thinking that they did not even bother to use an appraisal skill on him. He concludes that it is actually better this way, since it helps him hide his true strength. At that moment, the system confirms that he has reached level 5, unlocking his class's second exclusive skill slot and activating passives that increase all attributes by 10 points and spirit by an additional 3. A new draw is revealed, rare legendary golden affix obtained, corpse explosion. Elsewhere, someone stomps heavily on the ground in frustration. It is Liu Ruyan who had fled from the horde earlier. Looking at a crater filled with tracks, she curses, unable to understand where all those mutant creatures have gone. That night, the brightly lit facade of the Adventurers Association stands out in the city. Inside, shops like glittering weapons and Enzo battle beasts catch the eye. Bai walks through, observing everything while thinking that he can now learn a second skill and that it is worth taking a look at the magic books for sale. A huge poster advertises the Ice Storm Grimoire, complete with advanced training notes for 10,000 yuan. Bai is shocked by the price, even though it is only the most basic version, and concludes that being a mage is truly not something an ordinary person can afford alone. He walks up to the counter and says that he has come to activate a dungeon card. The clerk asks if he is a freshman who awakened his talent today, and Bai confirms that he is. The receptionist beside him explains that he only needs to state which school and class he comes from, then fill out the form. In the background, a muscular man wearing a bandana and carrying a glass sword places his bet, saying he is from First High School and that his class is mage, prompting cheers from one side and complaints from the other. Bai and the receptionist notice the commotion and he asks what is happening. The man approaches with a laugh, greeting Bai like a younger brother and expressing surprise that he has already reached level 5. Praising the fact that Bai is also from First High since he graduated from there himself, the man says that since fate has brought them together, 3 bottles of basic recovery potion now belong to him. Bai notices the bottles on the table and asks if all of this is part of a bet. Zhao Rushan confirms it. They were betting on which school would produce the first student to activate a dungeon card this year, as well as what class that student would be. He guessed correctly by betting on a mage from First High. Accepting the red potion bottles, Bai thanks the man and calls him uncle. Zhao Rushan complains, saying he only graduated 2 years ago. He introduces himself as Zhao Rushan and offers his help. If Bai ever needs to level up faster in the future, he can come to him. Curious, Bai asks whether, besides betting on who activates the first dungeon card, there are other kinds of bets. Zhao explains that they even bet on which dungeon a freshman will choose for the first time, or how long it will take them to clear it. However, he warns that now that they have spoken, the more experienced gamblers will no longer place random bets. Holding up one of the potion bottles, Bai proposes a bold wager that he himself can clear the Purgatory dungeon at 10-1 odds. Zhao nearly chokes on his smoke, stunned by the proposal. He tries to dissuade him, warning that the Purgatory dungeon is not something a beginner can conquer and that he should not gamble with his own life. But Bai's gaze remains firm and determined. The gamblers push a contract forward, asking what they should call him, since this bet could be worth around 500,000. And Bai thinks to himself that they must be afraid he will not be able to pay and might back out of the agreement. He introduces himself, and Bai of the family of Shangjiang, and promises generous rewards to whoever settles this matter for him. Zhao murmurs that he has never heard of the family but concludes that anyone capable of being the first to activate a dungeon card certainly cannot be ordinary. He must belong to some hidden aristocratic family. And Bai then activates the dungeon card. Abominable Goo Insect Dungeon, Level 5, Purgatory Difficulty, Single Challenger only. Zhao reacts in shock, realizing that Bai chose the highest difficulty right away. He is definitely a big shot, and now Zhao needs to hold on to this opportunity. And Bai is teleported directly into the dungeon. The challenge begins, revealing 4 stages. Survive 8 hours on normal mode. On hard mode, eliminate 300 golden-winged insects and 300 green-winged insects. On nightmare mode, defeat the generals of both species. And finally, on purgatory mode, destroy the insect's nest and survive. Without any map, Bai realizes he has no way of knowing where the nest is. He decides that the area around the nest must be where the insects are most concentrated, so he will simply head toward wherever he finds the largest swarms. Soon, a swarm of golden-winged insects appears before him, level 7, with 680 HP, 60 attack, and 90 defense. Without hesitation, Bai attacks the swarm with fireball. The fireball explosion engulfs the insects in flames. Bai notices that they seem to be defensive-type monsters, since the damage at the edges of the explosion is not enough to kill them. He decides to fire another shot to make sure. The struck insects begin trembling before exploding in a burst of green light. Surprised, Bai recognizes the effect. It is corpse explosion. The affix causes dead enemies to explode, dealing damage equal to their maximum health plus the attack power they received. He remembers that, in his rush to leave the mountain behind the school, he had not even noticed this effect. He had only seen that it dealt damage and applied it to fireball without thinking much about it. Green explosions spread across the battlefield. Walking through the destruction, Bai realizes that with the corpse explosion effect, he no longer needs to cast many fireballs. He only has to let the exploding corpses trigger a chain reaction. Another explosion engulfs him completely. The chain reaction continues spreading across the area, consuming everything around it in flames and green light. Bai keeps walking forward, his cloak billowing through the smoke. He reflects that the effect is perfect for dealing with this type of swarm. Even if an entire wave is destroyed, the remaining insects simply regroup and attack again. Suddenly, something catches his attention and he narrows his eyes in alert. A green light pulses from within a crater ahead. He reaches the top of a cliff and looks down to see a cave overflowing with insects. That must be the nest. He thinks that such a dense concentration only makes his job easier. Raising his staff, he begins to cast. The insect generals emerge from among the swarm, larger and far more intimidating than the others. A gigantic fireball descends upon the nest. Bai releases the spell, plunging the entire cave into chaos and blazing light. Outside, Zhao Rushan waits anxiously, his eyes fixed on the display panel showing that the dungeon is still in progress. He prays that Bai will succeed, remembering that the bets have already climbed into the millions. One of the gamblers mocks Zhao Rushan, saying that this time he will lose even the clothes on his back. Then he taunts him, if Zhao is really that confident in his decision, why not bet another 50,000? The receptionist watching the display notices something strange. The leaderboard for the Remnants of the Insect Emperor dungeon updates. First place Bai cleared at level 5 Purgatory Difficulty SSS rank. The news spreads instantly, and a crowd gathers, all shocked that someone managed to clear the Purgatory Difficulty of Calamity of the insect nest. They cannot believe that a complete unknown accomplished such a feat. Shouting with excitement, Zhao hugs another gambler, celebrating that Bai turned out to be a true blessing and that they have just won a fortune. He eagerly asks whether Bai's promise of a reward still stands. At the top of a hill, Bai's silhouette finally emerges from the dungeon. The system confirms his victory. Purgatory Dungeon Calamity of the insect nest cleared. He receives experience and a purple chest as a reward. Since it is his first time clearing Purgatory Difficulty, he also receives an additional golden chest. Surrounded by flames, he reaches level 7, activating passives that increase all attributes by 20 points and spirit by an additional 6, while also earning another chance to roll for an affix. Looking at the 2 chests, Bai recalls hearing that first clear rewards are usually exceptional and becomes curious to see what he will obtain. The chests open. The purple chest contains 6 blood fury pills, 3 nutrient solutions, the insect general's claw, and the insect emperor's fluid. The golden chest contains double the remains of the Kuan Yu insect lord, along with a purgatory wanderer emblem. Curious about the item, Bai examines the emblem. It is the golden emblem number 81 of the Purgatory Wanderers, which increases all attributes by 10 points and possesses growth potential. The description reveals that he is only the 81st person to receive this honor since the era of the Flame Emperor, a reward reserved for novices who possess both courage and strength. Satisfied, he decides to equip the emblem immediately since it is a growth item that boosts all attributes. Looking up at the sky, he remembers that he can still roll for 2 golden affixes and eagerly calls on the system to begin the draw. The result appears, draw successful. 2 new legendary golden affixes obtained, Flame and Cylinder. Meanwhile, back at the school, a tall man wearing a top hat asks the gathered students whether none of them had teamed up to hunt monsters, or whether someone had obtained a powerful area of effect attack as their very first-class skill. Liu Ruyan replies that there was no one else there, that their pace was nowhere near that fast, and that by the time they reached the mountain behind the school, the mutant beasts had already disappeared. At that moment, Professor Wang comes running over, shouting that something terrible has happened. The man in the top hat, revealed to be Principal Li, merely turns around and tells the students to return to hunting monsters. He asks Wang what happened, wondering why he is so agitated and lacking in composure. Panting, Wang explains that the school has produced a true monster this year, a student who cleared the remnants of the Insect Emperor at only level 5. Shocked, Principal Li adjusts his glasses in disbelief. Even he only managed to clear that dungeon at level 9, and even then only on nightmare difficulty. Wang insists it's true that many people witnessed it in the dungeon hall and that they heard the student cleared purgatory difficulty in just 1 hour. The scene shifts and Enbai continues advancing. The system confirms Elite Black Iron Knight level 6 eliminated, Black Iron Archer level 5 eliminated. Surrounded by fallen enemies, Enbai is already preparing the next fireball, thinking that he has 3 free dungeon runs per day and can't afford to waste them before the day ends. He notices that this dungeon has plenty of elite monsters, though far fewer than the Insect Emperor remnants. Hidden behind a pillar, a dark knight watches Enbai from a distance. Suddenly, the knight charges, firing energy arrows. Enbai dodges but is grazed by the attack. Taking advantage of the opening, he counterattacks. The system confirms another victory. Elite Black Iron Archer level 6 eliminated. Injured, Enbai drinks a red healing potion and decides that as soon as he leaves the dungeon, he'll buy a defensive skill book. Further ahead, he crosses a hall overrun with bats, heading toward a glowing gate. He rushes down the corridor, avoiding the bats, until he spots a glowing red button in the distance. Before him stands an enormous structure, a gigantic hammer, and Enbai steps onto the platform, activating the mechanism. The door slams shut, sending his hair flying backward. Alarmed, he realizes it's a boss unit. A gigantic armored hand grips a sword. The creature awakens, roaring that someone has dared disturb its sleep again and that death will be the punishment. The system displays a warning: Boss Black Iron Giant King level 7, attributes unknown. An appraisal skill is required to reveal them. The boss swings with full force, creating a whirlwind of destruction around Enbai. Cornered, he realizes the space is too narrow, the enemy is enormous, and its attack range is immense, there's no room to dodge. Determined, he unleashes a barrage of consecutive fireballs, thinking it would be best to end the fight all at once with a single strike. The fireballs hit the giant squarely in the face, exploding on impact. Furious, the boss roars that such an insect dared to wound him. Retreating, Enbai realizes the enemy is simply too large, Fireball can't break through its defenses. But he also notices that its movements are slow, so he decides to keep his distance and wear it down over time. The giant raises its hammer and slams it down violently once again. Enbai's face twists in panic. The shockwave races toward him. Another wave of destruction spreads through the area. He barely manages to escape, seen from below amid the rubble. Panting, he realizes he survived by a hair and that he actually used Fireball's delayed explosion to his advantage. Surrounded by a swarm of bats, the giant stops and Enbai gets an idea. I know what to do. He shouts to the system, add the cannon affix to my basic passive and the teleport affix to Fireball. An explosion erupts in the middle of the bat swarm. He explains that he'll use the explosions to control the bat's flight path. Seeing his opportunity as the giant advances through the swarm, Enbai decides now's the time. A massive explosion engulfs everything around him, and now use Corpse Explosion. Raising his hand, he unleashes the finishing blow, Focused Explosion. The system confirms Elemental Fireball proficiency has increased, raising its base damage by 10 points. Enbai is surprised to discover that controlling his skills with precision also increases their proficiency. The monster's mask falls to the ground, it roars in fury, letting out a battle cry. Raising its weapon, the giant charges forward, bellowing for the glory of the giants. High above, Enbai prepares his next attack, aiming at the enemy below. A massive explosion erupts beneath the giant's feet. He explains that the teleport affix allows him to move directly through the enemy's attack zone, bypassing any danger. The explosion continues spreading, consuming the giant. Wrapped in smoke, the final blow finally brings it down. The system confirms the victory. Boss unit Black Iron Giant King level 7 eliminated. Level 5 dungeon Black Iron King Crypt, cleared on Purgatory difficulty, rewarding a huge amount of experience and a purple chest. Since this is the first time he has defeated this boss on this difficulty, he also receives a hidden reward, the Black Iron Great Shield, a purple-grade piece of equipment. Engulfed in flames, he reaches level 8 with 8% experience. His passives activate, all attributes increase by 10 points, fire affinity increases by another 10, spirit rises by 6, and he gains another chance to roll for an affix. The purple chest opens, revealing 5 nutritional solutions, 500 black iron stones, and a mount contract. Holding the scroll, Enbai is astonished. A mount contract is an incredibly valuable item. Riding a blue dragon through the clouds, he thinks that having a mount makes traveling much easier and it can also assist in battle. Taking advantage of the moment, he decides to roll immediately while the iron is still hot. The result appears: roll successful. Legendary golden affix obtained, 10-fold multiplier. Since it's a duplicate, he receives a bonus roll, revealing another legendary golden affix. Crimson Lotus, capable of transforming fire element attacks into Crimson Lotus Fire, multiplying mana consumption by 10 while granting a 100% chance to inflict a burning effect for at least 30 seconds, dealing burn damage equal to 1% of the initial damage every second. After analyzing the new affix, Enbai concludes that judging by its name it must be Crimson Lotus Fire, capable of improving cannon's quality. He decides to apply 10-fold multiplier to his basic passive once again in Crimson Lotus to Fireball. His status updates. Class passive now has double 10-fold multiplier in cannon. Elemental Fireball reaches level 3 with the Crimson Lotus effect applied. Carrying his backpack full of items, he already plans his next step. Tomorrow he'll sell all the useless materials and items, buy some skill books, and a spatial ring is absolutely necessary as well. Leaning against the enormous backpack stuffed with loot, Enbai sighs in exhaustion, planning to sell all that junk soon. He remembers that he has already cleared every level 5 dungeon and that the next one only unlocks at level 10. Suddenly, his eyes light up as he remembers something important. He jumps onto the backpack, worried. I still haven't received the betting money. Did they run off with it? In the distance, he spots Zhao Rushan, already drunk, raising his cup and celebrating that Enbai has finally come out of the dungeon. Enbai finds it strange that Zhao is still there and asks why he keeps calling him Big Brother when he's actually younger. Zhao replies that strength is what matters. Clearing 5 dungeons in a single night and breaking every record proves that someone so powerful can't be treated like an ordinary rookie. He hands Enbai a card, revealing that it contains all the betting money collected that day, a total of 198 million yuan. Shocked by the amount, Enbai listens as Zhao proudly explains that while he was clearing dungeons, Zhao took care of collecting all the bets, resulting in this overwhelming victory. Leaning closer, Zhao warns Enbai to keep an eye on a certain individual since half of that money came from his losses. At a secluded table, a hooded man drinks alone. Zhao explains that it's Zhang Lei of the Shadow Assassins Guild, a level 20 assassin, and fears he may seek revenge. Enbai simply nods, acknowledging the warning. Before leaving, Enbai gives Zhao the monster remains and items obtained that night as thanks for all his help. Hugging the pile of loot, Zhao is amazed to realize it's worth a fortune. The scene shifts to the city at night among brightly lit buildings. Spread across the bed are the items Enbai acquired, a ruby ring, an amulet, a spatial ring, a basic appraisal book, and a mage-exclusive skill book. Sitting down in a yellow robe, he reflects that he sold the rest of the items and spent 3 million yuan just to assemble this equipment set. Mages really consume money at an absurd rate. Placing his hands on the book, he thinks that no matter how much money one has, it's only worthwhile if it's converted into real strength. He immerses himself in the book, absorbing its knowledge amid a golden glow. A new skill is revealed, Basic Shield, capable of binding a shield-type equipment piece, granting its defense and protection values plus an additional 5% of spirit. Excited, Enbai celebrates that a shield-based defensive skill perfectly compensates for his defensive weakness, and that the shield obtained in the dungeon will finally be useful. He binds the purple-grade shield to the skill, impressed by its power, regretting only that he couldn't bring back the Black Iron Giant King's coffin lid as well. Wrapped in a golden aura, he concludes that he now has an extra layer of protection to face the wilderness the following day. The next day, Enbai approaches the enormous golden gate leading out of the city. 2 spears cross with a metallic clang blocking his path. The guards question him suspiciously. A basic mage and only level 8, are you sure you want to leave the city? Enbai walks forward without hesitation. He pays the exit fee 10,000 yuan and asks them to register him. The guard acknowledges that he knows the rules and warns him that if he encounters danger, he should send a distress signal through the professional system so the nearest city guard can assist him. The guards give him one final warning before allowing him to pass. He must return before sunset because at night the beasts enter a frenzy state and all of their attributes increase drastically. Enbai steps through the portal. On the other side stretches a battlefield in ruins for hundreds of kilometers. Outside the city, the only means of transportation is through short-range teleportation circles. A mutant creature resembling a purple rat creeps along a tree branch. Walking through the mutated vegetation, Enbai observes that ever since the mutation, plants have undergone drastic transformations. One careless mistake could leave nothing behind, not even a body. Looking up at the twisted treetops, he remembers it's also easy to get lost there since electronic devices simply stop working. Thankfully, the professional system still exists, though he has no idea which divine being created it. Further ahead, a group of goblins is talking. One of them complains that there isn't enough food. Another grumbles that without food, the king will end up using them as a meal instead. A third points out that there are more and more humans nearby. The group's leader scolds them, saying there's nothing to fear since the humans who come around are always rookies, and that it would be even better if they showed up because he would personally crush every one of them and bring them back for the king to feast on. Hidden behind a rock, Enbai uses his appraisal skill on the goblins, concluding that basic appraisal can only reveal limited information about them. Without wasting any time, he decides to start hunting right there. A violent explosion engulfs the goblins' makeshift camp. One of them is thrown by the blast, screaming in shock as he realizes it's a human mage. Enbai calmly watches the scene, wondering to himself why such a terrifying mage would appear there. Wounded, one of the goblins flees in desperation. and Bai deliberately lets him escape, thinking he'll end up leading him straight to the goblins' main camp. Atop a tower built by the goblins themselves, a sentry notices something approaching and sounds the alarm. The goblin runs closer, shouting that a human mage has arrived and begging them to kill him immediately. Wrapped in dark smoke, and Bai finally arrives at the goblins' main camp. A gigantic goblin with glowing red eyes glares down at him menacingly, likely the leader of the tribe, blowing the war horn. And Bai doesn't hesitate and attacks first, triggering an instant explosion. The horde isn't intimidated at first, shouting as they hurriedly arm themselves. Two goblins step forward, a warrior wearing a necklace of skulls and an archer ready to fire. The arrow strikes in Bai's shield with a metallic clang. The barrier absorbs the impact completely, 0 damage, and the shield's value doesn't even decrease. The telekinetic shield remains intact. The goblin leader charges forward, raising his axe for a devastating blow. But even the leader's axe barely scratches the protection, dealing only negligible damage. Shocked, the goblin can't believe such a thing is possible, and Bai calmly raises his hand, almost apologizing for what he's about to do. An enormous explosion erupts among the goblins. Their chief collapses to the ground, already defeated. The chain explosion effect continues spreading, consuming everything around it in a trail of green flames. Not far away, a hooded assassin moves stealthily through the forest, daggers in hand. Intrigued by the noise, he wonders what powerful mage could be causing those continuous explosions. Beside him, a companion remarks that the pattern of explosions closely resembles the level 3 skill flame burst. Further ahead, part of the camp's structure collapses from the impact. A goblin with pink hair and red eyes grips his spear in a defensive stance, remaining alert. One of the goblins declares that if they manage to kill that human, they'll surely receive a reward from the king. Then, with a unified roar, what remains of the horde charges at Bai all at once. Watching the goblins' coordinated assault, Bai comments that they do know a little teamwork, but that's nothing more than a joke in the face of absolute power. He instantly chains one spell after another, wiping out the group with consecutive explosions. A spear thrusts toward him but is blocked and destroyed by the shield. Spinning his staff, he unleashes another devastating explosion, sweeping away what remains of the enemy's resistance. The system confirms 34 goblins eliminated, current experience at 16% of level 8. Amid the ruins, Bai mocks himself, saying he was lucky to clear a goblin camp so quickly. Among the wreckage, he notices something shining on the ground, surrounded by weapons, coins, and scrolls. He picks up a purple crystal, recognizing its value. It's worth 1,000 yuan per gram. In Shanjiang, only the wealthiest elites can afford something like that. He reflects that even though it's like walking a tightrope, combat classes really do earn money much faster than everyday support classes. Moving forward, he remembers that one of the goblins mentioned a king, so there must be an even larger camp nearby. In the distance, another explosion lights up the sky. A gigantic goblin falls, already defeated, as Bai flies toward it. Meanwhile, hidden among the trees, two assassins watch the scene. One calls the other Brother Lei, asking if that's the guy he encountered yesterday. The other confirms it, the very same one responsible for getting him removed from his position as team leader and forcing him to pay over $1 million to the guild in just 3 days. Watching from above, one of them whispers that the kid is only level 9, suggesting they ambush him in secret. The other immediately stops him, warning him not to even think about it. He's from the Bai family. Stretching his arms in relief, Bai finally takes a deep breath. He's reached level 10. The system confirms that all attributes increase by 30 points, fire affinity by another 10, and spirit by another 30. He concludes that it's getting late and decides it's better to find a safe place before continuing. His status updates: level 10, physique 138, speed 137, spirit 171, fire affinity plus 44, equipped with Purgatory Wanderer's emblem number 81, mastering fireball, telekinetic shield, and basic appraisal with 2 affix draws available. Perched on nearby branches, the assassins continue watching, commenting that they're too close to the city guard and should follow him more carefully. The two keep debating what this so-called Bai family actually is, wondering whether such a prestigious family really exists in the city. Already hidden inside a cave, his silhouette disappears into the darkness. Sitting beside the campfire, he decides to take advantage of the moment and asks the system to draw 2 new traits. A burst of golden light illuminates the cave, revealing the results of the draw. 2 new cards appear before Bai: Explosion and a trait marked with a flaming skull called Death Avoiding Substitute. The draw results are confirmed: a golden legendary trait, Unyielding, and an incredibly rare red mythic trait, Death Avoiding Substitute. Surprised, Bai exclaims, "Red mythic rank." Intrigued, he wonders why he's never heard of that rank before. Realizing there's a tier even higher than legendary, could there be a supreme mythic rank beyond everything he has ever known? Sitting in the cave, he laments that the trait isn't a skill, trying to figure out how to make the most of it. He decides to apply it to a passive ability, hoping it will still prove useful. The trait's effect is revealed. Upon taking fatal damage, it leaves a substitute behind while the real body teleports anywhere within a 1-kilometer radius, fully restoring all physical condition and granting 1 minute of complete damage immunity. It starts with only 1 charge, but the maximum number of charges increases and all spent charges are restored with every new level. Satisfied, he admits that the trait truly deserves its rarity. By reaching level 100, he could even revive 90 times. Suddenly, something slices through the air toward him. Alarmed, he demands to know who's there while blocking the attack with his telekinetic vision barrier. A hooded figure steps out of the shadows, greeting him mockingly. He asks how young master and is hunting monsters all alone without bringing a single servant, and Bai recognizes the face in surprise. The man smiles threateningly, demanding that Bai hand over all the money he won from yesterday's bets in exchange for sparing his life. Alarmed, Bai fires back that it's robbery, asking if he isn't afraid of being arrested by the city guard. Confidently, the assassin replies that he's already checked everything. Even if the guards are alerted, it'll take them 5 minutes to arrive, more than enough time. 2 accomplices appear beside him, and one suggests they stop wasting time talking and simply kill the target. And Bai smiles as he calmly pulls back his hood, thanking them for bringing only the 3 of them. 5 minutes is more than enough. The assassin charges forward, mocking that a lone mage is nothing more than a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, and that devouring him wouldn't even take 5 minutes. But suddenly, a fireball is already right in front of his face. A violent explosion of flames engulfs the entire area. Amid the wreckage, only a talisman remains, scarred by the blast. Gravely wounded, one of the assassins can barely remain standing, admitting between heavy breaths that a level 10 rookie actually forced him to use the life-saving talisman that had cost him a fortune. And Bai swings his staff as he approaches. Standing over his defeated opponent with his staff raised, he concludes that their plan wasn't bad, they simply underestimated one thing. His strength far surpasses theirs. The assassin recognizes Bai's face and shouts in shock, "It was you who used the level 3 skill Flame Burst." Pointing his staff at the enemy's head, Bai coldly denies it, saying they must be mistaken since he doesn't know any level 3 skills. Without hesitation, he engulfs him in flames, eliminating him quietly. The explosion completely consumes the body. Turning away indifferently, Bai remarks that corpse explosion turns out to be an excellent way to destroy evidence. He walks away, but a shadow appears on the ground. An arrow concealed within the darkness shoots toward the protagonist. Bai is struck in the back, crying out in pain as he staggers forward, stunned. Behind him, the same assassin reappears unharmed, revealing that Bai only killed his shadow clone after spending so long accumulating power at level 20. It was only natural that he had a few tricks to save his own life. Bent over Bai's fallen body, the assassin reaches out his hand, saying that the boy has decent strength but is still far too naive. All the lucky opportunities he obtained will now become his power. Suddenly, Bai's body transforms into pieces of wood, astonishing the assassin. Bai stands up with his staff raised, fireballs already formed in his hands, commenting with irony that this is what you'd expect from a level 20 assassin. He releases the flames directly onto the crouching enemy, engulfing him completely. Bai explains that if it weren't for death-avoiding substitute, the assassin's plan would have actually worked, and just to make sure there aren't any more shadow clones around, he decides to blow everything up a few more times. An even larger explosion consumes the entire area. The smoke clears, revealing an enormous crater in the ground. Among the wreckage, only a few scattered items remain: a ring, a pocket watch, and a dagger. Bai concludes that since even his spatial ring was destroyed, the assassin must be completely dead by now. As he gathers the items, he reflects that in this extraordinary world, the greatest danger usually comes from other class holders. Their bizarre methods are almost impossible to predict. Deep in thought, he realizes that the telekinetic shield cannot block every type of damage, and that the death-avoiding substitute is truly his greatest trump card. He concludes that only by leveling up quickly will he gain more chances like this. Suddenly, something catches his attention. A crack opens in the nearby rocks, emitting a strange purple light. Bai reaches toward the fissure and uses his appraisal skill, but the result appears partially censored, revealing only fragments of information. What he can read is enough: Secret Realm Demon King's Burial Grounds, medium-scale multiplayer, requirement, level 20 or below with 4 people required to open it, type, one-time use. Surprised, he realizes he accidentally blasted open the entrance to a secret realm by himself. Without wasting any time, he moves forward. He sighs, remembering that 4 people are required to open the place. He considers asking his classmates, but immediately dismisses the idea, thinking they are too unreliable, they would only steal the resources. Determined, he sends a message: "Brother Zhao, new secret realm, need 3 more people under level 20, come quickly." Then he hits send. Not long after, a voice echoes through the forest, calling out to him, "Brother, and where are you?" Bai spots the group approaching, relieved that they have finally arrived. Zhao Rushan apologizes for being late, explaining that he ran into a small delay on the way. He introduces the 2 girls accompanying him, his younger sister Zhao Zhiqing and her classmate Si Ying. Both have just completed their class transition, and he brought them along to gain some experience, hoping Bai doesn't mind. The 2 introduce themselves. Zhao Zhiqing is from Shulan Academy, a level 3 guardian currently at level 5. Si Ying is also from Shulan Academy, a level 3 warrior currently at level 4. Bai introduces himself to the group, asking them to simply call him Bai. Together, they enter the cave, and he leads them to the entrance of the secret realm. He explains that since it's a multiplayer secret realm, they don't need to fight. They only have to follow him inside, and each of them will receive 10% of the rewards. Zhao Zhiqing quietly asks her brother in confusion whether he wasn't supposed to be the one carrying Bai through the dungeon. How had things somehow become the complete opposite? Zhao Rushan hurriedly corrects her, insisting that she has it all wrong. Bai is a true professional, and they are only there to meet the minimum player requirement. He then tells Bai that he doesn't need his 10% share since he has been stuck at level 20 for a long time. Experience is useless to him now. A burst of purple light engulfs the entrance, opening the portal completely. Beneath a gigantic full moon illuminating a strange, desolate landscape, the group steps into the secret realm. Startled by the scenery, Si Ying cries out that this kind of dungeon is far too terrifying. And Bai silently thinks that she probably chose a shield-bearing, high-defense warrior class because she was afraid of getting hurt. Suddenly, a bluish skeletal hand bursts out of the ground. A skeleton rises, glowing blue with bright red eyes, followed by several more emerging in the distance. Its status is revealed: Skeleton Swordsman, level 15 purple elite unit with 28,000 HP, 350 attack, 150 defense, and sword mastery at maximum level. Concerned, Zhao Zhiqing asks whether they really don't need to step in. After all, Bai is only level 10 as well. Can he really defeat a purple elite unit like that by himself? Confidently, Bai smiles, commenting that the very first monster being an elite unit already proves this secret realm isn't low in difficulty. Privately, however, he feels uneasy, remembering that he cannot reveal the effects of his skill affixes in front of the three of them. He casts what appears to be an ordinary fireball at the skeleton. The spell strikes dead-on, exploding against the creature. The skeleton's skull is blasted into the air and destroyed. The group watches in stunned silence, unable to believe that was just a basic fireball, wondering if he is really only level 10. Glancing back with a faint smile, Bai thinks that shouldn't expose his affix since the bodies are still intact. More skeletons charge forward, and he continues firing fireballs, thinking that although there aren't many of them, the fact that every single one is an elite unit is already remarkable. A massive explosion engulfs several of them at once. Zhao Zhiqing reacts in disbelief, asking why someone that absurdly powerful would intentionally keep their own level low. After all, how can the fireball of an ordinary mage deal that much damage? Zhao corrects her, revealing that there was never any level locking. Bai only completed his class transition yesterday, just like the two girls. Shocked, Zhao Zhiqing mutters that she doesn't understand how the difference between two humans can be greater than the difference between a human and a dog. Si Ying asks if she's implying they're worth less than dogs, and Zhao Zhiqing simply tells her to shut up. Zhao Rushan urges everyone onward, warning that they should be close to the boss and that nobody must get in Bai's way. An even larger explosion completely swallows the last remaining skeleton. The system confirms, level 11 reached. All attributes increase by 90 points, fire affinity increases by 10, and spirit increases by 6. Surrounded by flames, Bai tells the group to collect the materials before moving on. Smiling, Zhao Rushan immediately fills his arms with items, bones, and crystals, assuring Bai that he can relax because they'll handle all the hard labor. Raising his hand, Bai calls upon the system to roll for a new skill affix. The system confirms, 1 attempt consumed. Rolling golden affix. Result, legendary golden affix obtained, high probability. Intrigued, Bai wonders what the affix actually means. He speculates that it might increase the probability of rewards when defeating monsters and decides to apply it directly to Fireball, since it's his only offensive skill. The effect is revealed. When attacking with this skill, the chance of triggering certain rare effects is increased, and enemies defeated by Fireball have significantly higher drop rates and hidden rewards. Satisfied, he celebrates having guessed correctly. Zhao Rushan approaches, saying they've finished collecting everything and stored it inside his spatial ring, then asks whether they should divide the loot now. Bai replies that it's better to clear the dungeon first. Beneath the light of the full moon, the group approaches a cemetery with rusted gates and gravestones shrouded in mist. A solitary coffin rests among the graves as the wind sways the surrounding trees. The group advances along the narrow path between the tombstones. Bai observes thoughtfully, commenting that there are coffins here again. The previous dungeon also had one. The coffin remains motionless, marked with a strange symbol carved into the wood. Suddenly, it explodes violently. Si Ying reacts in shock, hurriedly raising her shield to protect herself. A ghostly mist begins spreading throughout the area. The boss's status is revealed. Demon King of Curses, level 15 purple rank boss with 100,000 HP, no physical attack or defense, mastering the skills Chain of Life, Curse, and Summoning. The group stares at the shadowy figure emerging from the black mist. Zhao Rushan mutters in disbelief, unable to comprehend what stands before them. A gigantic skull rises from the dark smoke, its single crimson eye glowing as it prepares to summon something. Bai shouts, warning everyone to be careful. Raising his staff, he prepares to act first, determined to disperse the dense mist before anything else. Bai's fireball begins to form, empowered by the new high-probability affix and glowing with an intense orange light. Suddenly, his eyes widen in shock. Before them, the Demon King of Curses multiplies, creating numerous identical copies of himself, each wrapped in spectral chains. A golden barrier appears to block the attack. The chains surge forward, passing straight through Bai's barrier. They wrap themselves around Zhao Zhiqing and Zhao Rushan, who shouts in confusion, unable to understand what's happening. Alarmed, Zhao Rushan yells for everyone to check their status bars immediately. Bai examines his own condition. A special status reveals that he has been bound by the Curse King's Chain of Life. If he attacks a fake copy, he will receive the damage in its place. Terrified, Si Ying and Zhao Zhiqing cling to each other, asking in panic whether that means if they hit one of the copies, they themselves will be injured instead. With a serious expression, Zhao Rushan confirms that he has encountered this forbidden curse before, used by a lick. At the time, his party knew nothing about it and paid a terrible price. He recalls that one of his teammates had become the target of the Lick's chain of life. Everyone believed that as long as the priest continued healing and stabilizing his condition, there would be no real danger. But even after they fought to the very end and destroyed the Lick, eliminating the source of the curse, that teammate's life continued to fade away with no way to save him. Si Ying's eyes widen in disbelief, unable to understand how something like that could even be possible. Remaining calm, and Bai tells everyone not to panic. They only take damage if they strike a copy, which means that 9 of the 10 visible demon kings are fake. They only need to find the real one and kill it. Zhao Rushan nods thoughtfully but asks how they are supposed to identify the genuine one. Silently, and Bai thinks to himself that with his death-avoiding substitute, he isn't afraid of dying. But the situation is delicate because he was the one who brought everyone into the dungeon, and now he has to make sure they all leave alive. The many copies of the Demon King surround the group as spectral chains multiply around them. The real boss begins casting once again, strange symbols glowing around it. Zhao Zhiqing shouts, warning everyone careful, he's casting another skill. Another tremor shakes the ground, revealing more skeletal warriors emerging from the shadows. An entire army of skeletons charges toward the group. Standing back to back, and Bai and Zhao Rushan prepare to face the horde. Frightened, Zhao Zhiqing asks her brother whether in this situation it wouldn't be better to run away immediately. Zhao Rushan hesitates, saying nothing for a moment. She suggests to Bai that perhaps they should retreat instead of risking themselves here. But Bai reassures her, saying it's better to wait and observe first. As long as they stay by his side, those skeletal warriors pose no threat at all. With precise control, he suppresses the spread effect of corpse explosion and restricts the blast radius, making sure not to hit any of the Demon King's floating copies and trigger the curse's counterattack, safely wiping out the enemies. The fireball strikes one of the skeletal warriors directly, exploding in a controlled blast without spreading. The system confirms, elite skeletal warrior eliminated. Current experience 3% toward level 11. Surprised, and Bai hadn't expected the boss's summoned minions to grant normal experience as well, a tremendous bonus. Another skeleton roars as it charges toward the group. Confidently, and Bai spreads his arms and taunts, come on, the more of you there are the better. A chain of explosions engulfs a large portion of the horde at once. He grips his staff tightly, focusing on his next attack, but the fireball drifts dangerously close to one of the floating Demon King copies. Alarmed, he realizes his own mistake. He got carried away and put too much power into the attack. The explosion barely grazes the copy, missing the wrong target by the narrowest margin. Relieved, he acknowledges how close that was. He had nearly triggered the curse's counterattack. With his hands clasped together, Zhao Rushan begs Bai to be more careful since everyone's lives are in his hands. Bai apologizes, assuring him it was only an accident and that there's no need to worry. Wrapped in flames, he assumes a powerful stance, staff raised, 3 fireballs hovering around him ready for the next attack. With an instantaneous strike, the explosion disintegrates several skeletal warriors at once. The impact continues spreading as multiple fireballs race toward the skeletal enemies. 2 hours later, while Bai continues fighting in the distance, the girls are already sitting on the ground, exhausted, drinking tea to pass the time. Excited, Zhao Zhiqing raises her fists, amazed to realize that a secret realm could actually be cleared this way. Watching from afar, she comments that he's literally treating the boss like an experienced farming machine. Zhao Rushan agrees, saying that anyone else faced with such a troublesome summoning boss would have fled long ago. Only Bai is strong enough to slaughter skeletal warriors non-stop without pause. Si Ying carefully scans the surroundings. Suddenly, she notices something strange. No new skeletons seem to be emerging from the ground anymore. The scene widens, revealing a cemetery full of craters, but with no sign of any new enemies appearing. Zhao Zhiqing notices something else. Only a single copy of the Demon King remains floating in the sky. Smiling, Bai taunts the boss, telling it to keep summoning. What, are you scared? Zhao Rushan suddenly realizes something. Casting skills also consumes the boss's spiritual power. The others immediately understand he's run out of mana. Bai murmurs, finally understanding why the last remaining copy is still visible. The girls cheer as they realize the chain of life has also broken automatically since the curse itself has come undone. Determined, Bai prepares to deliver the finishing blow. The final copy, now revealed to be the true Demon King at last, glows with a sinister light. A colossal explosion engulfs everything, bringing the battle to an end. The system confirms purple rank boss Demon King of Curses level 15 eliminated. Congratulations to all survivors for successfully clearing the Demon King's burial ground's secret realm. Bathed in golden light, the girls float into the air, celebrating their victory, while Bai watches in silent satisfaction from the foreground. The system announces level 12 reached. All attributes increase by 90 points, spirit increases by another 6, and a new trait roll opportunity has been granted. A reward appears, the common chest of the secret realm purple. And for completing a perfect clear, they also receive the level 15 Secret Realm Crystal Core, a golden quality crafting material. Holding the crystal, Bai looks confused, unsure what it is. Zhao Rushan explains in amazement that it is a material used to create dungeons. It can be sold to the Adventurers Association in the city for between 3 and 4 million. Standing before the dungeon terminals, Zhao Rushan explains that this kind of material is never sold outright. Instead, its owner signs a contract and receives commissions based on the number of people who explore the dungeon created with it. The Secret Realm chest opens, revealing the Demon King's remains, a level 3 summoning skill book, the Sacred Bone Staff, and the Black Witch Necklace, both purple-grade equipment. Watching the portal begin to close behind them, Zhao Rushan comments that the hall was excellent, but they should leave quickly since that small world is about to collapse. The group steps into the swirling vortex of purple energy that carries them back. They all ascend through the collapsing dungeon, wrapped in light. Back outside, Zhao Rushan laughs in disbelief, saying he never expected a secret realm to be cleared so easily. It almost feels like a dream. Zhao Zhiqing immediately corrects him, warning him to choose his words more carefully. It wasn't they who cleared it, it was the great god and Bai alone. She turns to him, teasingly dragging out his name. Blushing, she asks if he could give her priority in buying that skill book, and Bai quickly does the math. According to their agreement, she would receive 10% of the rewards. The market price of the level 3 skill book is 8 million. Buying her share would cost him 2 million, and the other items would earn her another million. In the end, he decides to simplify things and charge her only 6 million. Zhao Zhiqing takes the opportunity to borrow money from her brother, who reacts in shock, saying it took him 2 whole years to save up just 2 million. Zhao Rushan scolds her, saying that money was his savings to find himself a wife. She immediately fires back that with the way he spends all his time drinking and fooling around, no woman would ever want to marry him. Si Ying shyly offers to lend her whatever amount she's missing. Surprised, Zhao Zhiqing asks if she would really lend her 4 million. Payment notifications appear on the screen. 4 million received, followed by another 2 million. Overcome with emotion, Zhao Zhiqing hugs Si Ying and declares that she loves her. Bai apologizes to Zhao Rushan for making him handle selling all the materials, but Zhao Rushan assures him it's no trouble at all and tells him to leave everything to him. The Sacred Bone Staff reveals its attributes. Spirit plus 120, durability 300, with the equipment skill illusion spell capable of making a target, either the user or an enemy, intangible, removing all physical attributes and causing them to float in place for up to 1 minute. The Cracked Black Witch Necklace grants Spirit plus 80, durability 100, and curse resistance plus 50. Analyzing a newly rolled trait, and Bai realizes that the multiple affix is a perfect match for telekinetic shield. It increases the number of shields he can control simultaneously, granting 1 additional shield with each proficiency level. Suddenly, he becomes alert, sensing suspicious movement around him. He quickly raises a golden barrier to block an attack from the shadows, thinking that anyone trying to ambush him right outside the cave entrance could only be members of the Shadow Assassins Guild. Watching the goblins among the trees, their red eyes glowing in the darkness, and Bai realizes it's only a small group, but they certainly knew how to set up an ambush at the cave exit. He raises his new staff and begins casting. Impressed, he notes that, just as expected from an epic-grade weapon, spiritual power flows through it with incredible smoothness. The system confirms that telekinetic shield proficiency has reached level 2. It can now bind 1 shield-type item, with its defense equal to the shield's own defense plus 10% of his spirit. Satisfied, and Bai comments that after so long the skill has finally evolved, and this is the perfect opportunity to train its proficiency against the goblins. The goblins shout to one another, telling everyone to fire faster because the human seems trapped. Behind the shield, arrows ricochet harmlessly. Calculating the numbers, and Bai thinks that the shield's base defense is 120 plus another 10% of his spirit, totaling 186. They can shoot all they want, they'll never break through it. An hour later, the goblins are completely exhausted, out of arrows, practically collapsed on the ground. The system confirms another evolution. Telekinetic shield has reached level 3. It can now bind up to 3 shield-type items, with defense increased to 15% of his spirit. Satisfied, and Bai reflects that after being attacked continuously for an entire hour, the skill has finally reached level 3. Raising his hand, he forms a fireball and announces that it's time to send them on their way. Panicking, the goblins scream at one another to run. A massive explosion engulfs the entire area. The system confirms 31 goblins eliminated. Current experience, 79% toward level 12. Farther ahead, other class holders are also hunting throughout the forest. A muscular warrior slams an axe into a slime creature, while another group battles a wild boar with shields and spears. Hidden behind a tree, and Bai watches the scene and realizes that the closer he gets to the forest's center, the more class holders there are. All of them are stuck at level 20, hunting materials just to survive. He decides it's better to find a more isolated place where he can hunt alone without competing for space. Continuing deeper into the forest, he realizes he has unknowingly reached the outer edge of its deepest core. Hunting goblins along the way, he finally reaches level 13. Suddenly, something catches his attention and his eyes widen in surprise. A new affix is revealed, True. It converts all damage dealt into true damage, ignoring every form of resistance. And Bai reflects that he had always worried because Fireball was his only offensive skill. If he ever encountered an enemy completely immune to fire, he would have no way to deal damage. But now, smiling confidently, he concludes that he has nothing left to worry about. No matter what attribute his enemies possess, every one of them will feel his fireballs. As he walks through the forest, a distant scream shatters the silence. He comes across a grim scene, hooded figures gathered around several corpses inside a crimson magic circle. One of them stands out, his face covered with tattoos beneath his mask, wearing a sinister smile. One of the hooded figures has a dagger buried in a victim, hidden from sight, and Bai wonders what is happening. Breaking into a cold sweat, he questions whether it might be revenge between guilds, but quickly dismisses the idea, thinking the brutality is far too excessive. The masked leader senses his presence and shouts, demanding that whoever is hiding reveal themselves. An emblem shaped like a skeletal hand comes into view. They are members of the Shadow Assassins Guild, and Bai steps out before them, surrounded by raised blades, asking what members of the Shadow Assassins Guild are doing there. The masked man addresses someone of higher authority, explaining that the guild members are responsible for the city's interior, but that the intruder's identity is unknown. More hooded figures gather around, ordering everyone to capture him before anything jeopardizes their important plans. With his hood raised, and Bai wonders who these people really are. They kill anyone they see without even sparing members of their own Shadow Assassins Guild. One attacker charges forward using Wind Step, and Bai reacts instantly, thinking that since they attacked without saying a word, whatever happens next isn't his fault. He releases a burst of golden energy. The attacker deflects the attacks with his blade. The masked leader laughs, saying that a lost lamb is the perfect sacrifice for the Lord of the Mountain. A violent explosion engulfs the battlefield as their powers collide, and Bai remains standing calmly over the fallen body of the enemy who had been so confident only moments before. More attackers rush toward him, shouting that the boy's strength is no joke and that everything they do is for the Lord of the Mountain. The masked leader raises his staff, loudly invoking the great abyssal demon Lord of the Mountain Eclipse, offering everything in exchange for his power. The sound of cracking echoes through the air as a massive stone hand begins to form. A gigantic stone creature emerges from the ritual, its crimson eyes burning with fury. The system reveals its status: Formless Stone Golem, level 20 Purple Elite, with 500,000 HP, 1,000 attack, 1,000 defense, and unknown skills. And Bai reacts in shock, unable to understand how that ritual could suddenly produce something with such overwhelming attack and defense. The masked man smiles, invoking the spell's effect. With blood as fuel and wrath as the blade, unstoppable through pain, fearing no agony, bloodthirst aura, the golem charges forward, releasing a devastating wave of energy. The explosion detonates with overwhelming force. Even amid the chaos, the golem continues roaring, completely unfazed by the attack. Its gigantic fist crashes down with terrifying force. Alarmed, and Bai realizes that his shield's durability is about to run out. The golem's punch passes straight through Bai. Using illusion spell, he renders the golem's arm intangible, completely nullifying the attack. Taking advantage of the opening, and Bai flies high into the air, effortlessly soaring over the mountains. He feels that his body has become completely weightless. Looking down, he spots the group of assassins still gathered below. He taunts them, asking if they can withstand this many fireballs. A rain of fireballs pours down from the sky upon them. The final explosion engulfs everything, crimson lotus fire. Craters spread throughout the forest, smoke still rising from the trail of destruction left behind. An armored knight walks through the area, unable to understand what happened there. He calls for the captain's attention, pointing towards something ahead. A blonde knight kneels down, silently examining the ruins. He orders that any discoveries related to the abyss be reported immediately and instructs his superiors to send someone to inspect the area. He asks whether the person who sent the distress signal has been found. The answer comes back bluntly: negative, Captain. Surveying the devastation around him, the blonde captain concludes that an intense battle must have taken place there, and that whoever sent the signal may already have perished. Far away, and Bai walks through the forest, reflecting that those enemies were truly difficult to deal with and that one of them managed to escape. The masked survivor, already on the run, thinks to himself that it would be better to leave this mess for the investigation team to handle. Back at the battlefield, an older man examines the scene and confirms that they really are creatures of the abyss. He explains that it is a corrosion barrier. They are members of the abyssal cult. The blonde captain reacts in shock, asking if it is really that same abyssal cult. Both men are alarmed, unable to understand how those cursed cultists suddenly appeared near Xunjiang. The captain immediately issues his orders. First, notify every patrol team to search for traces of the abyssal cult. One subordinate promptly acknowledges. Second, issue an emergency warning, ordering all professionals to retreat inside the city and avoid remaining alone in the wilderness, especially the students. The scene shifts to the dungeon hall conference room. Lin Qingshan, director of Xunjiang's Department of Education, declares that he has already reviewed this year's internal school recommendation list and hopes there are no irregularities. Zhang Gaihai, principal of No. 1 High School, remarks beside Zhang Qi, principal of No. 2 High School, that their school has a student with a talent rating of 9/6 this year who has advanced into a level 3 Ice and Snow Mage. Slamming his hand onto the table, the minister interrupts furiously, demanding to know why the student in Bai's name is missing from the list. Confused, Lan Qiu, principal of Xulan High School, asks whether he isn't from their No. 1 High School. Zhang Gaihai reacts in complete bewilderment, unable to understand what she's talking about. Scratching his head in confusion, Zhang Gaihai wonders how he has never even heard of that student. And Bai's records begin appearing on the screen. First place in Insect Emperor Remnants, level 5, Hell difficulty, SSS rank, first solo no damage clear, first place in Wild Forest, level 7 with the same ranking, first place in Ruined Village, and first place in Black Iron King's Tomb, all with the same astonishing record of flawless solo victories. The minister stares in disbelief at Zhang Geihai. Lin Qingshan demands an explanation, warning that if he discovers any malicious intent behind this, the school will undergo a thorough investigation by higher authorities. Zhang Qi suggests that it might simply be a dungeon system error. Lin Qingshan grumbles that a talent like this will shine in the grand examination even without an internal recommendation, and when that happens, the minister will regret it. At that moment, an alert echoes through the loudspeakers. Abyssal cult activity has been detected outside the city. Everyone is to remain on high alert. Furious, Lin Qingshan declares that traitors to humanity like them dare to appear in Xunjiang. Lan Qiu suddenly remembers that her student Zhao Zhiqing had mentioned that Anbai was still hunting monsters alone in the eastern wilderness. Pointing at the system, the minister warns Zhang Geihai that if anything happens to Anbai, he will not escape responsibility for negligence. Determined, Lin Qingshan decides to take matters into his own hands, using his authority to issue the military's highest priority mission: locate and rescue Anbai. He sends the request immediately. The scene returns to the forest, where the bodies from the cult's ritual still lie inside the Crimson Magic Circle. One of the knights informs the captain that those bastards have just escaped. Reading the newly received mission, the blonde captain frowns in confusion, wondering who this Anbai is and whether the whole thing isn't just another nuisance. Another knight speculates that he might be the son of someone important and suggests rescuing him first. The captain responds with a look of disdain. He dismisses the idea with a wave of his hand as he moves forward. Ignore that for now. Capturing the members of the abyssal cult is far more important. Move out. The knights charge through the forest in pursuit. They finally corner the fleeing cultists. You sewer rats, let's see where you'll run this time. In response, the masked cultist's face twists into a terrifying smile, his cracked purple eyes glowing with sinister light.